Hey guys, I wanted to record this real quick. I was going through Forbes. I was going through a few different articles, but I was looking at Forbes, and the subject title or the subject line was "Mind the Gap: The Wealth Management Talent Shortage and What to Do About It." And to me, I thought it was really interesting because I always talk about right now is really an era for entrepreneurs. Right now, people are really looking into creative ways where they can be an entrepreneur, be their own boss, where they can really be in an industry that's always in need, right? So there's no worries of shortage or demand. And if you really look it up and Google which industry produces the most millionaires, the shortage, if you look up any of those informations, you're going to see that financial services is actually pretty much top of the list. You know what I mean? And this article was published in March of this year, so it's pretty close. But for those that have had conversations with me, we always talk about how most of the money managers and most of the people that hold on to the wealth are in that retirement stage right now in their life. You know what I mean? And this article here specifically just talks about 5 points on, what we can do or what the industry can do to really take a look at it, right? And again, why does it matter? Because a shrinking advisor workforce means more than just open job postings. We're talking about relationships with people who need to build that rapport and trust to handle their finances. We're talking about inheritances that are being passed down from a generation that knew how to save money to a generation that doesn't know how to make money, right? So there's a lot of trust that needs to be built. And with that, this is a good time because for most people joining any industry, you're going to have to build up the knowledge, the experience, the conversation, know which providers offer which products, and really understand the language of, the financial service industry, right? If we look back, the 401k is about 40, 50 years old. How is that doing? Not that great. If we look back 40, 50 years of people that buy term and invest the difference, how is that strategy working? Google it up, chat GPT, but it's not working that great either because a lot of times what people don't get is that it's not really just what's available out there. It's the understanding of how to utilize what's available out there, right? So being in the financial service industry isn't just you open up an account or help someone sign a policy in place. It's about the whole follow-up. It's the whole staying in connection, doing reviews, looking at the market changes and making adjustments. And so the 5 points in this article, just, to touch on it real quick, you can read it. Again, it's Forbes magazine, March 25th of this year. Title line was Mind the Gap, the Wealth Management Talent Shortage and What to Do About It. And the first talking point is revamping hiring and talent strategies, right? In today's economy, most people aren't really looking for another job that's barely getting them by. They're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and still living paycheck to paycheck. Companies don't really appreciate talent and personnel as much as they say or promote that they do, right? And at the end of the day, really, you got to look at it. Even if you graduated with a PhD in accounting and finance, they teach you absolutely nothing about personal finance. They teach you everything you need to know to make sure that the $1 billion company you're working for makes another $1 billion and you're saving every penny that crosses paths with their budget and expenses. But they don't teach you anything about your own personal finance. So getting a college degree in today's world, just in any subject or major, right? Maybe cybersecurity is still in demand. But those come and go. But they really don't teach you how to save for yourself. They really don't teach you about personal developments. They just teach you what they want you to know, right? And as soon as you don't fit that mold, they move on to the next. So again, revamping hiring and talent strategies, break industry silos, recruit from other industries or other people that are working in parallel lanes in the financial service industry. Financial services can be banking, could be credit cards, it could be insurance, it could be protections, it could be real estate investment, real estate brokers, it could be tax people. And don't get me wrong, you guys have to understand, CPAs, they don't make advices, they don't advise on things, they just know how to prepare taxes. They don't really understand everything, or they're not in a position to really advise too many things, right? So just because you have a CPA, that's great. They can clean your books and make sure everything's in line for an audit, but that doesn't mean they have all the tools, resources, and the know-it-alls to direct or guide any type of funds or retirement plans. Okay. And then you also have the investors and the advisors, right, that charge the fees to manage your assets, right? And they're only gonna, the thing is, all of these people, if you talk to someone that works in the bank, it's still gonna be financial literacy, but they're gonna cater their conversation on opening checking accounts, getting a mortgage, personal loans. You know what I mean? They're gonna do what they can to get your business or open an account that's gonna give them your money so that they can leverage and use, right? If you talk to a financial advisor, they're only going to recommend products where they get to take a fee, assets under management, versus really making that money work for you. Will your money work in the banking industry and investments? Yeah, of course. But is it going to work efficiently or most effectively? No, because in both of those examples, if your money loses, they still get paid. Right? So there's a difference. Same thing with real estate investors. You know, they're going to talk to you about how to get a mortgage. They'll do whatever they can to get you approved, right? No matter what the interest rates are, because everyone's just looking in their lane. So when we talk about break industry silos, I've talked to real estate agents who haven't sold a house all of last year in 2024. So those come and go with the market, right? People all jumped into real estate when COVID was around because everybody was buying ridiculous prices. Right? So they were getting paid ridiculous amounts of money. But again, that trend has gone. You know, it'll take a while before the real estate market is hot again. But if you talk to a real estate investor, they're always going to tell you, oh yeah, right now is the best time to buy. It's always a good time to buy. Right? So why not just build a team of all the experts in all of the different industries in financial services, right? That's the easiest way to really build your franchise or to build that kind of talent pool, right? Engage in universities early, you know, build partnerships right out of college. A lot of them are in debt $50,000 to $150,000 and they're getting salary offers that are like $60,000 a year. Okay. So, you know, college students, when they graduate, they're going to look for an opportunity, right? Diversify the advisor workforce, you know, promote work-life flexibility. If you own your own business, you know what I mean? If you're an entrepreneur, then you can create it. And I would say that, you know, just because you're an entrepreneur doesn't mean you work 3 hours a day, right? Sometimes you got to do more work than someone that has a full-time job. But at least there's no limit to how much you can make compared to your job, okay? Second point was enhance career development and retention, right? A lot of people, they compete with each other. You know, a lot of, like, you know, you go to any company, they work for a few years and then they're going to go to a competitor and move over there because they're going to get a 10 to 40% increase in their pay. And then they jump back and forth. And now there's like, you know what I mean? Constantly this game of moving around until you max out what your value is in the market. For that, imagine if you just had a career opportunity where you determine how much you got paid and how much or how fast you can get promoted and moved up. Right? But on this point, define clear career paths, offer competitive compensation and benefits, and provide ongoing education and specialization. In the financial service industry, you're always going to have continued education. You're going to have providers that are always going to want to reach out and educate you on what they're offering because they're all fighting for you to represent them. There's always going to be mentorship and guidance from those that have been in the industry, right? So when you talk about ongoing education, I tell people, formal education is great. You can go to school, go to college. Great. It's a checklist item. Get it done. But at the end of the day, the things that you need to know, the things that you need to learn, they're not being taught in school. You have to go out there and find it yourself. You have to go out there and personally invest into yourself to learn and develop the skills that are necessary. Okay? I mean, if a college degree helped you get the ideal job, they wouldn't make any more money. They'd want you to come back to get a master's degree. They want you to come back to get a PhD. And they want you to come back and get a second PhD because they know that if you learned everything you needed to learn in high school, they'd make absolutely no money, right? It's kind of like a doctor. Why would they want to cure you if they know that giving you the cure will mean that you'll never have to come back to them again? Okay, so they're gonna give you medication that's gonna create side effects that's gonna bring you back for other medication that's gonna create other side effects. Okay, so the industry itself, depending on who you work with, who your organization, team, broker, company, whatever it is, the potential is there, right? You got to do your own research and due diligence. You also got to put in your time and commitment. You got to make a decision. Okay, if you know what I mean, if you want to change your life, you can't do the same thing that everybody else is doing, especially if 90% of America is broke. Okay, I mean, that's the reality. Chances are you're getting advice from one of the 90% that's out there, that's struggling, that's having a hard time, that's having challenges, and you listen to what they have to say, and you expect that you're gonna have a different outcome than what they have going on. Okay. Number 3, leverage technology for efficiency and scalability. Now AI, I literally sit down with a client and I'll use ChatGPT because everything that I say, they're going to question it, but they won't question AI and ChatGPT. I literally have conversations with them and I'm like, okay, so if that's what you think, let's see what ChatGPT says, right? It's almost like having a consultant there with you all the time where you could just type up the concerns and you have this automatic, like, quick response. Okay. Like, I type in, why does buy term invest a difference not work effectively? Why is it that, you know what I mean, term policies don't create generational wealth? You know what I mean? And sometimes you get those answers not because you're trying to prove anything wrong, but you're trying to find the most efficient strategies out there. So that way people understand all the different options and how to leverage and utilize it, right? Not that there's any bad tools or products. They just have specific designs where they are more efficient and they work better for, right? So adopt AI and automation, implement hybrid advisory models, and enhance data analytics, right? We could take a look at that. I could just change screens here. I have the tabs open, right? Which industry produces the most millionaires, right? We talk about the difference between entrepreneurs and employees, right? We look at the 30-year history. Look at this. If you look at around here in 2000, a little bit before 2000, look at where the peak was, right? Before 2000, and look at that loss, okay? This is what people, they're always going to tell you. The market's always going up. S&P is always going to rebound and recover. But it took it almost 13 years to break even. Meaning if you had $100, you lost $50, $60, and it took you 13 years just to be back at $100. And the real question isn't so much as, well, at least it recovered, at least it rebounded, at least I got my money back, right? If you're still in retirement or if you're still in the planning for retirement. But let me ask you this, 13 years from now, how much can you buy with that same $100 that you had 13 years ago, right? I mean, you look back 5 years ago, your $100 buys even less things now, and we're just talking about a 5-year time span, never mind a 13-year time span, right? But they're only going to tell you what you want to hear. You want to hear that your money's still growing, that the market's still coming up. But visually, if you take a look at this, it took almost 12, 13 years before you got your money back. And that's without interest. We're just talking about break even, right? But technology, information, everything's available out there. You just really got to know where to look for it and how to get it, right? Number 4, implement succession planning and team-based models. We know that if we build team-based models, people are willing to stick to a community and fight for each other. Versus if you have an industry or a model design that makes them compete against each other, they're going to go at it all day, every day. We see families in the financial service industry. We see families when it comes to estate planning and splitting up the assets. Brothers, sisters, mother, daughter, like they'll go after each other to take everything they can from each other. If you don't believe me, look at Kobe Bryant. When Kobe Bryant passed away, his wife and his wife's mother, we're not even talking about his mother, his wife and his wife's mother spent 2 years in court fighting for money, okay, after he passed away. Can you imagine losing your husband and your daughter from a helicopter accident? And now you and your own mother are going to court to fight for his money. So, like, don't tell me that distant relatives, friends, family, business owners, all of them, like, you know what I mean? When you create an environment where they have to compete to survive, they're going to go at it. Like, it's just a given. That's why estate planning is so important. That's why having a trust set up is so important, right? But we're talking about in the Forbes article now, implement a succession planning in a team-based model. Even they understand that the old industry where you got to step on each other to get promoted is not effective. All right. All you're literally doing is creating more competition. And this is why people hold on to the knowledge that they have and they don't share it with each other, because they don't want the other person to surpass them. Succession plan. What if you built something that you can pass down to your children, that they can inherit, that they can start receiving and earning from, because you put in that work and that effort to establish it, right? This is what I'm talking about. How can you create generational wealth if you don't have something that is protected, right? Because once you give up and sacrifice your time, effort, energy, innovation, ideas, you can't go back and redo that, right? Once it's out there, it's out there. You can't bring back that energy. Once you say the word, you can't pull it back, right? And sometimes those are the best years of our lives, that we're giving a job that it's going to give you a 3% raise and replace you with a college graduate for, 20% less pay, right? So develop internal successors, facilitate ownership transitions. Imagine if all your clients, your book of business, remain with you, or you could pass it down to your family. Think of all the people that you've built relationships with that you can help, right? Think of all the people you've recommended a restaurant to, you've recommended a place to visit and travel, vacation spots. Think of all the friends and family that you've given advice to and recommended something that helped them in their life. Imagine if you're able to keep that business, keep the residuals. Every time, let's say I introduce Disney World to somebody and they love it, and now they go every single year, and they've gone for the last 20 years. Imagine if every time they went to Disney World, I was able to receive a little bit of something for it, just because, you know what? I found it to be an amazing place. I recommended it. They tried it out. They loved it. They've gone there for the last 20 years. And every single time they go, I get a little percentage of their trip. Those are your relationships. Those are your referrals. That's literally your business, where Disney World would be making all the money and you got absolutely nothing out of it. Maybe a gift card if they thought about it, but $20 gift card, really, you know what I mean? It's not efficient either. Take a picture, it lasts longer. And promote team-based advisory models, you know what I mean? And this is where, if you go back to number one and you have a lot of people in that field and you're creating a family office, or you have a team that's really close-knit, you can turn around and ask your CPA friend. You can turn around and ask your mortgage broker friend. You can turn around and ask your investor friend, and have that kind of access to their industries and their avenues, so that you can support your client the most efficient way possible. And then number 5, prioritize client education and self-service tools. Anyone that knows me, I always talk about the free workshops we offer Monday to Friday. We always talk about we can set up these workshops for you in person, live. Financial literacy is everything people need, and they just don't realize it because they're too busy spending money they don't have to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like, while they're spending all the time they don't have to work at a company that doesn't even appreciate them, right? This is exactly what we do. But some people are too good for financial literacy. Some people are too good to learn on how to create a better lifestyle. But guess what? If they hear it enough, if they see it enough from people around them, eventually they'll pick up a thing or two, and they'll understand why paying yourself first is so important. You know, why limiting your spending or budgeting yourself is important. Or understanding that what's available out there isn't always what your friend tells you it is, right? I have people that come to me and say, hey, I tried this whole BTID thing and I've lost money. I've only made X amount of dollars, not even in the tens of thousands, less than $10,000 in the last 6, 7, 8 years, right? And their policy is about to expire. They no longer have coverage. The new coverage price that they're looking at is too expensive. But guess what? I mean, that's just when you don't have the other information, the other resources, if you don't have a second opinion, you're limited to what you have when you make that decision, right? If you had to go and get an operation, a brain surgery or something, you're going to probably want to get a few second, third opinions before you go, all right, cut me open and do what you need to do, right? No difference in the financial service industry. So the path forward, I mean, this article is great. Find it, read it. But more importantly, this conversation, it might spark some interest. It might spark some thoughts in people. Reach out. Let's talk about it, okay? But at the end of the day, no one is responsible for your financial future other than you. So hopefully this helped.